Our next question goes to Ms. Stubbs for 5 minutes.
Thanks, Chair. Minister, I just wanted to advise you that the project you referred to earlier in Saskatchewan, run by Canada's only rare earth mining company, was cancelled about 3 weeks ago. They've paused all their work there. So there just really is no other conclusion that after 8 years and $3.8 billion that you're spending in total on your so-called critical minerals and metals strategy is actually resulting in expensive roundtables meetings, and you're utterly failing to capture the production, the value chains, the supply chains, and the exporting of critical minerals that are so important to reach your own stated public policy goals and also to reduce global dependence on hostile and despotic regimes. So moving on to LNG, the truth is, of course, this: after 8 years of your government, since 2015, 13 West Coast, 3 East Coast, and 2 Quebec LNG export terminals have been proposed. You've approved 4, but the only one, and one of those approvals that's under construction was already, of course, approved by the former Conservative government. 0 are actually built in Canada. From Pacific Northwest LNG to Energy Saguenay to Kitimat LNG to Peardrey Energy, who wants to build one on the East Coast, the proponents of all 15 cancelled or delayed LNG projects under your government in Canada, many who are now focused instead on other countries, cite, quote, delays and long regulatory timelines, and that these decisions are, quote, really driven by regulatory issues. Now, in the same time, in case you try to claim this is just a worldwide challenge, the U.S. constructed 7 LNG terminals. They've approved 20 more. They're on track to build 5 more this year. Germany asked for LNG from Canada, but the Prime Minister said, of course, we'll all remember, there's no business case, apparently only according to him, not to the rest of the world. So then Germany built an import facility in 194 days, had to go to Saudi Arabia and then cut a deal with Qatar for supply. So now, even though Canada is the 6th largest natural gas producer in the world, Mexico is now on track to become the 4th largest LNG exporter in the world, to beat Canada with 8 proposed terminals, and the first one will be ready in August. The advocates for major global investors in Canada say this is the problem. Quote, the biggest issue has been the regulatory delay and regulatory hurdles, pipeline construction, opposition to pipelines. Your LNG failures cost Canada $108 billion in government revenue, $500 billion in new investment, and 100,000 good-paying Canadian jobs, while you ceded the global market to Americans and to dictators and hostile regimes with lower environmental and human rights standards, meanwhile failing to provide our allies with the LNG they want and need from Canada. Now, you've stated, quote, the private sector should be putting up the money for these projects, with which, of course, Canadians totally, or Conservatives totally agree, including, by the way, on TMX, which should have been producing 5 years ago and not cost a single taxpayer cent. But it's clear your own government, its red tape, is driving away investment and opportunities for Canada. So, on what date will you actually accelerate approvals for LNG projects, just like the Deputy Prime Minister claims you guys want to do? And on what date will Canada actually export LNG to our free and democratic allies around the world and provide liquefied natural gas from one end of the country to the other for Canada's own self-sufficiency and security?
Well, thank you for the series of statements. What I would say, just to start with, is
facts.
You are just wrong about mining. If you look at the total value of Canadian mineral production in 2021, it's tripled since 2002. It's actually up 20% in 2021 over the year before. We are seeing enormous growth with respect to the work that's being done.
It's not true for the critical minerals on your own list, but can you answer the questions about LNG?
In terms of LNG, I would say that, one of the challenges we've had in this country was the gutting of SIA 2012, or the gutting of the environmental assessment processes by the Harper government, which ruined the ability to actually achieve social license because nobody trusted that environmental issues were being addressed. We have 3 plants right now that are being under development. One is the LNG Canada facility. The second one is the wood fiber facility. The third one is an Indigenous-led one, Cedar LNG, which went through the new process in less than 3 years. So we've made significant progress ensuring that we are doing this in a manner that is consistent with Canada's climate obligations. And I would just tell you, with respect to the Repsol project in particular, I would just encourage you to call the Repsol folks, because what you just said is just not correct.
Minister, your
we're out of
red
time
tape has
on that.
also killed the only tidal
that's the 5
project in
minutes,
Canada
so
for
Ms. Stubbs, your
exactly the
time is
same
up.
reasons.
We're
The
now
problem is
moving
domestic,
over
it's your own government.